Hey you guys, it's Flo with Healthy Hollows. It really starts from a young age. I always knew I wanted to help people, but I never really thought twice about wanting to help people that were sick. I had some medical issues growing up. I had Bell's palsy. I had glasses from a young age. I had to wear a patch for a while, and then moving forward, I started experiencing asthmatic-like symptoms, but it turns out that I was being mistreated for asthma from ages 5 until about 16, 17. So I was a competitive dancer, and when you're younger, you don't notice things as much. One, because your heart rate is at a higher level than when you become an adult and your average heart rate kind of slows down. So I wasn't really noticing the symptoms as much until I started getting 16, 17. So what would happen is I would be really exhausted from seemingly doing nothing. I had little to no endurance, even though it was, I was very active. I was dancing 5-6 days a week. And it just felt like I would have these episodes where I would get really uncomfortable, where I felt like something was pressing on my chest. And then I would sometimes black out after a performance, and it just wasn't obviously normal. So I started having testing done at age 16. I saw so many different doctors. I had probably over 50 different tests run, and everything would come back super normal. And it was not only frustrating, but just it became this huge mystery and this huge source of stress in my life, because I knew something wasn't right, but every doctor was telling me, you're totally healthy, you're fine. And then they started leading into, well, you probably just have anxiety. So I feel like a lot of the anxiety I experience today stems from not feeling heard in those moments. And obviously there have been events in my life that have, led to a little bit of anxiety also, but I really feel like that's a huge source of it. So I kind of gave up on doctors, Western medicine. I felt just very, I felt very silenced and very much like my pain was being minimized by anyone I spoke to. Of course my family was very supportive, but when doctors repeatedly keep telling you what isn't wrong with you, it's hard to want to keep that fight up and keep saying keep digging. But long story short, I gave up on getting testing done. I just admitted, okay, maybe I have anxiety, maybe I have asthma. And it wasn't until age 19 where I was experiencing way worse symptoms. So I couldn't really walk up the stairs without feeling like I had to lie down and recover. It just became exhausting to be alive, as dramatic as that sounds. So what ended up happening is I went to the doctor because I couldn't catch my breath and I was so exhausted, and it turned out that my resting heart rate was so incredibly high. And the doctor said, well, you probably have leukemia or a blood clot in your lungs. So we're gonna send you to the emergency room to rule out a pulmonary embolism and make sure that you don't have leukemia. So I'm like, first of all, I can't process all of this in the time frame that I was given this news, and my parents were driving me to the ER. I remember being terrified that I wasn't gonna come home that night. And it was a very traumatic experience for me to feel all these racing thoughts. So in the emergency room, I had a CT scan done, and bless that ER doctor, because she knew that when she looked at that CT scan, my structure was not in the normal state. So what that means is, I was diagnosed with Pectus Excavatum. And what that means essentially is they call it sunken chest syndrome. So what happens is you feel like something's crushing your chest, because that's kind of what's happening. So my sternum, instead of being flat, was heart-shaped. That's the way it was described to me. So instead of being this way, it was this way. So even though nothing was wrong with my heart and my lungs, and all those tests came back totally normal, my sternum crushing my heart and my lungs is what was causing so many of these symptoms. And when you don't have full use of your heart to pump out as much blood as it can, or full use of your lungs to expand and contract the way they should, that's when all these symptoms and pain were surfacing. So it answered a lot of questions, but it also opened up a lot more questions. I felt very relieved that I hadn't imagined this, but at the same time, I wasn't really sure where to go from there. So we were directed to see a cardiologist, and then we were referred to cardiothoracic surgeons. And sadly, the first two cardiothoracic surgeons I saw gave me little to no hope that I would be able to be helped. The first one told me that what I was experiencing shouldn't cause anyone pain the way I was describing. He didn't even open my chart. He literally just came in the room, looked at me, said, "You shouldn't really be experiencing pain with this. Have you considered wearing a sports bra?" And I was mortified. I shut down. I started experiencing all of those same anxious and depression type thoughts, because I felt like, oh no, like I'm being told again that nothing's wrong with me. People are gonna think I'm crazy. I don't know how I'm supposed to move on from this. So my family, being as amazing as they are, were like, nope, we're gonna go see another surgeon. We're gonna get another opinion. The second surgeon said, well, I can do the surgery. It's very invasive. And he described a very old style of the Pectus Excavatum corrective surgery. And he said, and also, I just want you to know, like, you're an adult, but I've never done this surgery on anyone but a child. So once again, feeling extremely frustrated and just like, I don't even know how I'm supposed to get help. And it wasn't until I went back to school, so I was in college at the time, I was in my, I think it was my junior year, and I decided, I was in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I was actually talking with my roommate and one of my best friends, and she's like, well, you live by the medical mile in Grand Rapids, because I'm thinking, like, should I go to the Mayo Clinic? Should I go to the Cleveland Clinic? And she's like, why don't you see if there's any doctors there? So it was there in Grand Rapids, Michigan, that I found Dr. Mark Schlatter. He was the most incredibly calming and informative presence. My family and I sat with him for over an hour, and he really just explained everything, left it to be my decision ultimately, and I knew that was the person that was gonna change my life. So that's exactly what happened. I had the NUS procedure done. So I had, they put a stainless steel bar through your chest wall, so they're actually tearing through all of your chest muscle. They flip the bar, push your sternum out, and then they sew it to the muscle on the side, and you leave the bar in for around 3 years to allow your sternum to heal in that corrective state, and then they remove the bar. So I had all that done, had it removed, totally changed my life. And while I was recovering from that surgery, it was when I started realizing, oh my gosh, like, what I eat, it really impacts my energy. Oh my gosh, what I eat, like, my mood changes based on how I'm fueling my body. So instead of pursuing my current, at the time, career path of becoming a physician's assistant, I started looking into holistic programs, holistic nutrition, holistic medicine, and that's when I found Bowman College in Berkeley, California. I graduated from Grand Valley State University, went to San Francisco, lived there while I was in the holistic nutrition program at Bowman, and that's how I got on this path to helping others advocate for themselves, helping others just learn that you are your body's own best fighter. You are allowed to say, this doesn't feel right. Somebody please listen to me. And that is your right. And that's something you should fight for every single day. So my life's mission really is bringing awareness to the fact that not every illness is present. There's a lot of invisible illness out there, and it's not meant to be minimized. It's meant to be heard. And just kind of allowing people to feel empowered and know that like your journey to optimal health doesn't have to be linear, and it can look very different from person to person, and it still can be really beautiful. So I want to bring awareness to Pectus Excavatum. I want to bring awareness to invisible illness, and just my own journey that had been filled with so much anxiety, which led to so much thought distortion around food and eating before I kind of got on the path to going to Bowman College and becoming a certified holistic nutritionist. So it's an ever-going journey, and I'm still growing and still learning, and I'm so thankful to have this platform to share my voice. And I hope that you can all find some ounce of inspiration in the things that I post or the things that I speak to. And I just want to thank you so much for that support all along the way.